members of the public. Tendring District Council Planning Committee on Tuesday the 14th of May 2024 here at the Town Hall in Clacton. This committee meeting is being broadcast live. It is also being recorded. The link to the live stream can be found on the Council's website, www.tendringdc.gov.uk/live meetings. For the purpose of the recording, I will introduce everyone. I'm Councillor Maria Fowler, and I'm the Chairman of the Planning Committee, and I will introduce the members of the committee separately. Councillor Alexander.
Good evening, Chairman.
Councillor Bray.
Good evening, Chairman.
Councillor Goldman.
Good evening, Chair.
Councillor Smith.
Evening, Chair.
Councillor White.
Good evening, Chairman.
Councillor Wiggins.
Good evening, Chairman.
Thank you, members. The Council officers assisting us this evening are from Committee Services Bethany Jones and Committee Services Manager Ian Ford. From Planning Services, Planning Officers Jacob Yasma and Michael Pingram, Planning Manager John Pateman G, Director of Planning Gary Guyver, and our Planning Solicitor Mrs Joanne Fisher, and also joining us this evening from Essex Place Services Ecology, Sue Hooton. Changes to the agenda running order. There are none. The application will be presented by the officer, followed by public speaking in the order of the applicant or agent, any members of the public who have already asked to speak for or against the application, then a speaker from the town or parish council, and finally the ward councillor. Members of the committee will then have a chance to question the officer. Once all the questions are answered, the committee will then debate. When all the points are discussed, finally I shall ask if we have a resolution and then call for a proposer and a seconder. The committee will then vote according to the normal rules. Item 1 on the agenda, apologies for absence and substitutions. Mr. Ford, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I can report apologies for absence this evening from Councillor Sudra and Councillor McWilliams. Neither of those two councillors have a substitute tonight. And I can also report apologies from Councillor Everett, and Councillor Bray is substituting for him this evening. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Minutes of the last meeting, which was held on Tuesday the 16th of April 2024. Members, have you cast your eyes over the minutes? Do I have a proposer to accept these minutes? Councillor Wiggins proposed, seconded Councillor Alexander. May I have a show of hands to accept the minutes, please? Of course, Councillor Bray was not at that meeting. Item 3, declarations of interest. Are there any? None. Thank you, members. Item 4, questions on notice pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 38. Mr. Ford?
None received, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Item 5 is our first application this evening. A123 stroke 01191 stroke 4, Tendring Technology College, Rochford Way, Frinton-on-Sea. And to present this application for us this evening, our officer, Mr. Michael Pingram. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, everybody. So the application site is Tendring Technology College, which is located on the southern side of Rochford Way within the parish of Frinton-on-Sea. This application seeks planning permission for the erection of a 3G artificial grass pitch with ancillary fencing, floodlights and a storage container. The application is before the Planning Committee following a call-in request from Councillor Turner, who has raised concerns that the development would result in a negative impact on the street scene, is of a poor layout and would result in a negative impact to neighbours. So the area subject to this application is outlined in red on the slide here. It's part of the existing playing field of the wider college, located to the southeastern corner of the site. The main built form associated with the college is located north of the application site where I'm hovering at the moment, with the remainder of the playing fields being located sort of to the northeast/east of the site. Further out to the west, additional community playing fields which are allocated as safeguarded open space within the adopted local plan. But beyond this, the character of the area is heavily urban with a significant number of residential properties, as you can see, to all sides, most notably to the south along Heronsgate and Walton Road, to the east along Cedar Close and Lumber Quays, and to the north and west along Rochford Way and Stewards Close. The site does fall within a settlement boundary for Frinton-on-Sea within the adopted local plan. Here's just another image of the site, just a Google image. You can see the Triangle Shopping Centre further out to the north, but generally beyond the playing parks, you can see that it's predominantly quite urban in nature. So I'll just run through some photos of the site. So this is just facing out north towards the site, and you can see in the distance there the college. And broadly speaking, the proposal is relatively in front of where you're looking now. Again, another image here, but on the right-hand side over here, you can see some of the residential, or the boundary to some of the residential properties along Walton Road, and also further residential properties further out. This is a little closer facing east, where you can see, again, the boundary to the neighbouring properties along Walton Road. And then finally, the end property on Heronsgate, and for context, the pitch is proposed to be roughly where my mouse is hovered at the moment. So the proposal is to be located to the sort of southern section of the site. It will measure 97 metres by 61 metres. As part of the works, it will include 6 floodlights. Each will measure 13 metres in height. There's also going to be a 4.5 metre high ball stopping fence, which will go around the perimeter of the pitch. And also a 3.5 metre high acoustic fence, which is, if you follow the cursor on my mouse, it's this kind of L-shaped part in the southern corner. Essentially the part closest to the residential properties. In addition, the proposal includes a hard-standing spectator area with a 1.2 metre high protective fence along the northeastern boundary, goal storage areas to accommodate sports equipment, and a steel storage container painted green and measuring 2.6 metres to the northeast of the pitch. There will also be a 1.1 metre high bund where my mouse is hovering at the moment. During the determination of the application, following concerns raised by officers in relation to the impacts to neighbours, amendments to the scheme have taken place. Notably, the pitch has been relocated approximately 3.2 metres further north away from these existing neighbours. A landscaping scheme has been provided on top of the proposed bund, and also the operating hours have been reduced. So initially it was proposed to open till 10 p.m. every day. That's now been amended to read as follows. So Monday to Friday it will be 8 a.m. until 9 p.m. and Saturdays, Sundays and bank holidays 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. So this is another image of the proposed pitch, and you just essentially is a repeat of the previous slide, but a little bit more zoomed in. So if you can see the sort of blue lining, that's the 4.5 metre high perimeter fencing, and then the pink line here is the 3.5, the bunding just along here. Here's some elevation drawings, so you can see the floodlights, obviously the tallest part of the proposal. You've got the ball stopping fence at 4.5 metres here, the 3.5 metre acoustic fencing there, and then the storage container at 2.6 metres. This is a flood lighting scheme. I will go into the impacts of the lighting in a lot more detail shortly, but just so you're aware that this is a plan that sort of shows the level of lighting and kind of essentially is showing that it will be inward facing towards the pitch. And this is a proposed landscaping scheme, so here the 1.1 metre high bund, and on top of that there'll be trees, which I'll go into in a lot more detail shortly. So before I go into the assessment, I just wanted to show our members other examples. Before I do that, actually, this is the existing pitch layout on the left-hand side, which shows the running track here and some existing pitches, and this shows that proposed. So obviously had to be tweaked to accommodate for the AGP pitch, but also meet the requirements of Sport England. So before I go into the assessment, I just want to show you some other examples, as I understand members had some queries regarding this earlier on the site visit. So there's been other permissions approved in the district that I just wanted to highlight to you. So this is the Harwich Sports Centre application that was approved. This was an officer delegated decision earlier this year, but it gives you a bit of context and kind of how it will look. This was taken, I understand, in April, so a few weeks ago. And you can see that there's the floodlights. These match the size of what's being proposed this evening. A couple of years back, the planning committee recommended approval for a similar scheme at Clacton Leisure Centre. I do want to point out though that the floodlights approved here were 15 metres in height, so they are a bit taller. This photo is taken just this afternoon, so a real fresh photo, but just note that the actual floodlights are taller in this example than they are on that being proposed. And then this is just an example of a similar development outside of the district. It's not anything that I've personally been involved in, it's just purely to show you an example of how it could look. I thought it was quite a useful photo to show the lighting and how it kind of goes inward, but this is not within tendering, so it's purely just to be used as an example, nothing more. Okay, so in terms of the principal development, an enhanced sports facility would expand the range of accessible sports, recreation and community facilities in the Frinton and Walton area, which in turn supports school and community demands. The playing pitch strategy for tendering highlights that there is both a current and future shortfall of football pitches, and also notes that most pitches are either that have been assessed are either standard or poor. The proposal will provide a high-quality artificial grass pitch, not impacted by poor weather conditions, and will broaden the opportunity to take part in sport by local community groups and football club players. In addition, Sport England have been consulted and have confirmed that while the proposal will result in the partial loss of the existing playing field, the development is for an outdoor sports facility. As such, they raise no objections, and also note that the proposal generates benefits, including the provision of facilities all year round and a facility available for the community use beyond school hours. So taking this into consideration, officers consider that the proposal would generate a high level of public benefits. As such, we offer a strong level of weight in the overall balance to these benefits. As we'll get to, with this application, it is finely balanced, and so at this stage, I'm just saying that there's a strong level of support, weight given to the public benefits. I'll come to it, but we'll need to weigh that against the harm that I'll discuss shortly. So in terms of the impact to the character of the area, the surrounding area includes the school to the north, residential properties to the east and south, and the playing field to the west. Against this project context, whilst the proposal will be relatively prominent from the street scene, it's not necessarily considered to be out of character with the existing setting. The most prominent part of the scheme is the 6 floodlights. However, this is a typical addition to a 3G pitch, and while prominent, it would not be significantly harmful given the existing built form in the surrounding area. Other elements of the scheme, including the perimeter and acoustic fencing, would be less prominent and do also provide other benefits in terms of reducing the noise and frequency of balls having to be retrieved if they were to be kicked over, for example. So I've sort of weighed up the positives in terms of the principle. The harm it relates to the impact to the amenities of neighbouring residents. As we can see on this plan here, there's a lot of neighbouring properties along this boundary here in particular. And so a key consideration is understanding whether the noise and light disturbances would be to a significant level. So if I start with the noise impacts, a noise impact assessment has been provided. It confirms the highest predicted noise level from the pitch when in use is 46 decibels at the facade of the residential houses to the south and 46 decibels to the houses to the west. This is below the 50 decibel threshold for the onset of moderate community annoyance as clarified by the World Health Organization. In terms of more transient noise levels, noises from voices is predicted to be a maximum of 48 decibels. Noise from whistles is expected to be 65 decibels. And noise from ball impacts, as it hits the fence, for example, is a maximum of 64 decibels. These all fall within, they're close, but they all fall within the World Health Organization's 65 decibel criteria. So to counter the impacts of the development, the 3.5 metre high acoustic fencing is provided, as well as the bundle landscaping. The Council's Environmental Protection Team have been consulted and have confirmed that they agree with the conclusions of the noise impact assessment and recommend that all recommendations within that assessment, such as acoustic fencing and submission of a noise management plan, are implemented. During the determination of the application, local residents have provided an independent review of the potential noise impacts, stating there is likely to be low-level background noises as the current baseline position, and therefore, even with the proposed mitigation measures, the noise from the the pitch, will be clearly audible, particularly during evening hours. This harm, they say, is worsened by the all-year-round use of the site, which offers little respite for neighbouring properties, and concludes that alternative locations within the college grounds should instead be considered. This independent assessment has been reviewed by our Environmental Protection Team. They note the contents but maintain their initial comments, but they do, however, accept that there will be a low observed effect level. So, in summary, on this particular point, from a purely technical perspective, the change in noise level is considered acceptable due to the absolute noise levels being within the World Health Organization guidelines with the suggested mitigation measures. However, we do acknowledge that there is inevitably a degree of noise disturbances caused given the relatively close proximity to the neighbouring properties. As I said earlier, during the course of this application being determined, amendments have been provided, including reducing the operating hours and also relocating the pitch further away from those neighbours. Therefore, that has obviously reduced some of the harm, but officers do afford a level of weight to the harm in the overall planning balance. Moving on to lighting impacts, a lighting plan has been provided which shows the luminance calculations to the closest residential properties. The calculations demonstrate that the luminaire intensity, which is otherwise kind of known as the glare from the floodlights, whilst operating is below the threshold for such a location and is inward facing towards the pitch, which would, in this respect at least, have a negligible impact to neighbouring amenities. Again, our Environmental Protection Team have been consulted and didn't raise any objections in this regard. But again, officers do appreciate that given the proximity to these residential properties, there will naturally be some level of visual disturbance via the floodlights. Not necessarily from the glare of them, but the light spillage that naturally is generated. Again, because of the amendments to the scheme, this level of impact is reduced. However, that is not to say there is no impact. So again, a level of weight is given to these impacts in the overall planning balance. So moving on to other issues, highway safety. Highway safety. So Essex Highways Authority have been consulted, and they confirm from a highway and transportation perspective the impact is acceptable subject to conditions. Essex parking standards state there should be a provision for 20 parking spaces. To the north of the site up here, there's approximately 110 spaces, so this is comfortably met. The Council's Tree and Landscaping Officer initially confirmed that there would be no impact to any existing vegetation, but did request full soft landscaping details be submitted. A landscape strategy has been provided, and it shows the 1.1 metre high bund with landscaping above. The landscaping includes a native buffer mix, wildflower meadow, English oak and silver birch trees. There will be a total of 13 trees which measure anywhere between 3 metres and 5.5 metres at the time of planting. The tree and landscape officer has since confirmed that this is a good level of soft landscaping and that will soften and screen the development and therefore raise no objections. Essex County Place Services Ecology have been consulted and they have confirmed they are satisfied there is sufficient ecological information available for the determination of the application, and add that the flood lighting scheme represents a sensitive lighting scheme for foraging and commuting bats with little to no spill onto adjacent suitable habitat or building. Given this, they raise no objections subject to conditions. In terms of representations, Frinton and Walton Town Council have objected to the initial plans with concerns the proposal was an overdevelopment of the site, would be open all year round until 10 p.m, the floodlights were excessively high, and they raised concerns with overall sound management. However, following the submission of amended plans, whilst they still object to the scheme, they do state that they welcome the reduction in the opening hours. There have also been 75 letters of objection and a petition signed by 265 people, all against the scheme. But to counter that, there's also been 100 letters of support and a petition signed by 359 people. So in conclusion, the proposal would generate a high level of public benefits, notably through the inclusion of modern fit-for-purpose facilities that can be utilised all year round. Sport England offers strong support despite the part loss of an existing playing pitch, and officers are not aware of an alternative location better suited for the proposed development, whilst equally noting that the playing pitch strategy highlights there is both a current and future shortfall of football pitches. As I said before, a strong level of weight in the overall balance is therefore given to the public benefits that the scheme would provide. In addition, the proposed development is not considered to result in significant harm to the character and appearance of the wider area. There is sufficient parking provision, and ECC highways offer no objections subject to conditions. Similarly, ECC Ecology do not object subject to conditions. However, while from a purely technical perspective, the change in noise level is considered to be acceptable due to the absolute noise levels being within the WHO guidelines and including the suggested mitigation measures. As I've said before, we do equally acknowledge there is inevitably a degree of noise disturbance given the proximity to the neighbouring properties. The amendments to the scheme have reduced this level of harm, but there is still that level of harm. Again, with regards to the floodlights, the lighting plan provided demonstrates that the glare would not be to an unacceptable level, with all lighting being inward facing. But that said, again, given the close proximity, there will be a degree of visual impact to neighbours, if not necessarily from the glare of the floodlights, but from the light spillage it would generate. So taking all of the above matters into consideration, officers have weighed up the strong public benefits versus the harm to the neighbours. It's a very close one, but on this occasion, on balance, we consider that the wider public benefits do outweigh this identified harm, and therefore, I do stress it is on balance. This is recommended for approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pingram. Speakers next. We're not going to go to speakers. We're going to go to our head of planning, Mr. Pateman G.
I am sorry, I don't normally interrupt that quickly, do I? I apologise for that. Just a very, very quick thing. Just been pointed out to me that the paragraph number on the recommendation is not correct. I think it says 10.2. It should say, if I scroll down, in relation to 9.2. It's a minor point, but just to make sure that the recommendation at the very beginning ties up to the correct paragraph at the end, which is the conditions. So it should be 9.2. I think it says 10.2. A very minor correction, shouldn't change anything, but just for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pateman G. Now we go to speakers, and our first speaker for this application, the applicant or agent or representative, Mr. Robert Rouse. Mr. Rouse, if you'd like to take a seat, and when you push the button in front of you, you have 3 minutes.
Perfect, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Hi, my name is Robert Rouse. I'm the Director of Sport and Society at Tendring Technology College. I'd like to start by acknowledging the concerns raised by residents and also reassuring everybody that we've been working extremely hard to try and mitigate and alleviate these concerns. The design submitted by planning is by no means a first attempt, and it has seen numerous changes and improvements over the last 18 months. With regards to noise and lighting, an independent acoustic survey was conducted with all mitigations included in the reviewed design, and the lighting scheme is designed to the relevant lighting standards for planning. These have been passed through environmental protection. I apologise if I'm overlaying what you've said. We've also recognised the concerns around the environmental impact of the project, especially around the protection of protected species, including bats. To help inform the design and reduce any impact, we commissioned an independent ecological assessment, consulted regularly with the ecologist to ensure that the scheme was sensitive to concerns. The council ecologist has reviewed this assessment and is satisfied that the reports are valid. We have included a bund, a planting scheme into this landscaping design to help provide an additional noise buffer, which is along with acoustic fencing should help reassure people that the concerns raised have been taken seriously and solutions found to help alleviate concerns. This has resulted in there being no objections from any of the council's statutory consultees during the planning process, and whilst we acknowledge that there is some vociferous local objection to the project, I strongly believe that the benefits of the project outweigh these objections. There is a huge need for facilities, and we have developed a proposed programme of use which supports people of all ages to have opportunities locally, whilst also working with charitable and community project partners to develop opportunities to support those most in need. This is not a facility that will see large crowds or spectators, but a community resource that will provide large benefits to a wide range of people. The vast majority of the use will be from partner clubs who support junior grassroots football. These clubs will receive contracted and prioritised access to the pitch at core times. By doing this, we will be able to manage the appropriate use of the pitch and ensure there are the mechanisms in place to deal with any issues or deviations from the terms and conditions of use, including behaviour, noise and swearing. I say all of this as a local resident who has lived in this area since 1974. I've been dedicated and baptised in one of the local churches. I've picked up my first racket and snooker cue at the local tennis club in the early 80s, following on in the footsteps of my parents in the very same clubs. I've grown up in this community, fled the nest and returned to work at the local secondary school for the last 21 years. In that time, I've witnessed the school fare well and not so well in government ratings of what a school should be. I've witnessed at least 6 different headmasters. I've witnessed our facilities degrade, and I've been heavily involved in trying to raise money to make our facilities better. It is difficult. As a school, we are committed to making our facilities accessible to the local community. We want to ensure that these facilities are modern, fit for purpose and available for all year round. The artificial 3G pitch will do this superbly and is an excellent chance to improve our facilities.
3 minutes, Mr. Rouse.
And in turn offer the next generation of school community to be proud of. Do I have to stop there?
Thank you.
I've got one more sentence. No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Member of the public speaking in favour of the application, Ainsley Davidson. Mr. Davidson, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Ainsley Davidson. I'm the chairman of Frinton and Walton Youth Football Club. Thank you for allowing me to speak in support of the plan for a 3G pitch. I would like to tell you a little bit about our club and why a 3G pitch would make such a difference to us. Frinton and Walton Youth Football Club was established 46 years ago to provide football for young people in Frinton, Walton and the surrounding area. We currently hold the Football Association's highest 3-star accreditation for being a sustainable and well-run club. Our volunteers have been recognised at a national and county level, winning awards for their services to grassroots football. Indeed, the Essex County Football Association has estimated the value we bring to the Frinton and Walton community through the volunteering and services we provide to be £1.2 million a year. We currently have around 270 registered players, supported by 70 volunteers, which makes us a larger organisation than some primary schools in our area. We run 15 teams, 12 boys, 2 girls and 1 men's teams, plus mini kickers, wildcats and just play for women recreational football sessions. As the area is growing through new housing developments, we are seeing an increased demand to provide football for young people. Accordingly, we'd like to launch 4 new teams in September: under 7 boys, under 8 boys, under 9 girls, under 18 boys, to meet this demand. However, we are facing a real fight to continue as we are, and there is a real risk the club may have no option but to move out of Frinton and Walton due to the lack of facilities in our area. We play our pitches at Frinton Park Playing Field, the site next to the school, where the pitches are officially rated as poor quality. They suffer frequent waterlogging as there's no drainage at the park. The council commissioned a report in 2015 to look into installing a drainage system. The cost in today's money would be more than £430,000. Council officers told us they do not have the money to spend on drainage to improve the pitches here. If they did, Low Road in Dovercourt would be their priority. So what does this mean for our young players? We couldn't use Frinton Park for 22 weeks this season due to waterlogged pitches. That is 65% of the season where we didn't play any home matches. We had to play our home games in Holland-on-Sea, Clapton, Dovercourt, Colchester, Halstead, Great Cornard, even further afield. We're not only struggling for pitches to play on, Frinton Walton is the Cinderella of the district when it comes to floodlight pitches, where teams can train during the winter in the midweek. Every other area has a district has a floodlit 3G, Astro or hardcore pitch. Around 70% of our teams have to train during the week in the winter in Clapton, Dovercourt or Colchester due to lack of facilities. It's clear we don't have a sustainable future in Frinton and Walton without significant investment in facilities in our area. Having access to a 3G pitch will not only help solve these issues, but give us a sustainable platform which to grow. We can offer more football opportunities for the community.
Mr. Davidson, 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Member of the public speaking against the application, Mr. Steve Smith. Mr. Smith, if you'd like to take a seat, and you have also 3 minutes from when you start speaking.
Which button do I press?
It's all right, it's already on. The red light's on.
Thank you very much. On behalf of a large percentage of the community living in the immediate area of the proposal, I would like to thank the committee for giving us the opportunity to explain some of the serious concerns raised by many of them. All that I'm about to say can be evidenced. There is no doubt that the nearby community have been treated as planning cannon fodder by Tendring Technical College. TTC have not had the decency to undertake any level of consultation with their neighbours, despite clear guidance given by Sports England. The level of arrogance can only be described as a deliberate, premeditated snub to the community and to Sports England. And it is certainly a valuable insight into the level of contempt that they have for their local community. From an impact point of view, this proposal will definitely have a negative impact on the well-being of many nearby residents. They will lose their right to a peaceful existence, be driven from their gardens by noise, suffer from intrusion to their privacy by use of the trail, and face a block of light over 3 times higher than their bungalows. Surely TDC has a duty of care to protect members of the neighbourhood. Given the numbers of bungalows in the area, this 76 or nearly 77,000 metres cubed block of light will have a dramatic visual impact for miles around. I have no doubt that you're aware members of the community are entitled to raise concerns regarding planning applications. These concerns should be based on documentation supplied by the applicant. In order to give valid comments, it is essential that clear, unambiguous documentation is supplied for review. In the case of this application, there was a revision which superseded the original application. This revision was reviewed and a number of important inconsistencies were discovered which naturally required clarification. A 14-page document was produced and submitted. This report asks 11 questions which have never been answered. The report also includes 38 statements which have never been rebutted. In such a case, how on earth can local community be expected to exercise their right to give a genuine response? I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Next, the Town Council representative, Councillor Nick Turner. Councillor Turner is also the ward member, so Councillor Turner, you have 8 minutes.
Madam Chairman, thank you. Good evening, fellow members and officers. I will speak on behalf of the Town Council first. I applaud the school and the AIT Academy for at long last opening TTC and its facilities paid from the public purse to the wider community. About time too. Fully understand the position of the Academy and its casting a commercial eye across its estate. All journeys begin with the first step, the most important step, and the need for good companions. Some travel with you, some you meet along the way. In this case, AIT, using TTC as its vehicle, the applicant, has singularly failed to make that first step. By this application, it has succeeded in upsetting 220 odd of its closest and immediate neighbours. Not bad for a first step. The school has been strangely quiet. Usually when it wants something from the wider community, it isn't backwards in coming forward. This leads one to think that maybe the school, realising the extra responsibilities and demands on its budgets, is not, well, I leave you to make your minds up. The neighbours are very worried about the effect of this application on their lifestyles. If the committee are mindful to approve, the school's in the middle of a housing estate next to a council playing field, which are the home to Frinton and Walton Youth Football Club. Some of the neighbours already are subject to noise and ripe language that comes with living next door to playing fields. The neighbours accept this as part and parcel of the location. There is a saying that the last straw that breaks the camel's back. This application is looking like that last straw. TTC, their Academy AIT, plus the contractor SSL, by their cavalier approach to this application, may have little, if any, regard for the neighbours. Not once have they consulted, yet you're reading the documents, you will come across community consultation. Trips off the tongue and is meaningless as far as the immediate neighbours are concerned. In fact, it is almost an insult. Not one individual has been consulted. TDC, the Frinton and Walton Youth Football Club, Kirby Athletics Club, Sports England, Essex County Council, etc. have been. In the 7 months since the application's expiry date and the Town Council twice for making a refusal, not once have the Academy, the school or the contractors approached any resident or councillor, to my knowledge. Both local football clubs are in favour of this facility, and they would be, wouldn't they? In a studied response to my question of what is the FWYFC's position re this application, I received this comment, quote, "We are a potential user," full stop. They are considered as partner clubs and could be prepared to enter into a service agreement with the school to hire the facility for training and matches. I'm sure Kirby Athletic would concur. The issues for the Town Council raised in the objection and recommended refusal are well covered by the District Ward Councillor's speeches. Please refuse. Now may I put my Ward Councillor hat on, Madam Chairman? Thank you. I called in this application to the committee as it is very contentious. This is shown by the petition of householders that back onto and are opposite the school. The vast majority, 222, are against this application. The petition that the school placed on the planning portal is signed by many and from a long way away, 20% in fact. Well, they will not be affected by the negative side of this application. Very few, if any, have any propositions on or opposite the curtilage of TTC. There are several health issues, the main one being the rubber crumb, old tyres broken down to a crumb. These are microplastics. An EU statement in September 22 recommended the introduction of a ban on the future sale of intentionally added microplastics onto the European market, which includes rubber infill for 3G pitches. The rubber crumb does not break down, it just moves around, blown by winds, moved by use and users of the pitch. The 3G pitch will need topping up every so often as the original rubber crumb disappears into the local environment, neighbouring gardens and the school's other facilities. The hours of operation are understandable from an operator's point of view, but completely unreasonable when seen and heard from the other side of the fence. I note that a token gracious reduction of 1 hour per weekday from 10 to 9 p.m. has been submitted, together with planting on top of the bund. The same bund that is suggested very strongly by Sports England that it should be used for spectators, trim trails, informal running, cycling and orienteering. I ask you to look at that, orienteering. I can find no width measurements to see how this will work. The statement of need is unsigned, has been written by a teacher. I'm not sure that this is official. It appears to be just a point of view from the committed sports faculty. A lovely evening as of yesterday, and you're enjoying a quiet barbecue in your garden, and a game of football is playing across your fence, and from the school. The 4-letter expletives are arriving, together with the glare of the lighting system towering 40 feet or a height of a 4-storey block of flats. As the game finishes, you are then witness to the slamming of doors, shouted good nights, etc. You eventually get your peace and quiet back around 9:30, but hey ho, it'll only be another 10 hours and it'll all start again. With the best will in the world, a management plan is not going to reduce the above scenario significantly to remove the major fears which will not be unfounded of the school's immediate neighbours. As to the hiring, the pitch needs to make a minimum excess of $25,000 per annum over and above the extra costs it will bring to the school budget. The sum is for a sinking fund to be able to refurbish the pitch in 8 to 10 years' time. This means that the average hire charge to the wider community is going to be in the order of £100 an hour. That is £300 per football match. From a recently retired headmistress, I was informed that with the complexities needed to enter into, run and manage agreements to use the 3G pitch, the school is going to have to employ at least 1 extra FTE. The report is fair and balanced, and that is why I've taken 7 months to reach us. I'm not going to argue on the basis of policies in the MPPF, as that is a balanced, nuanced consideration that I could equally make from a polar opposite. I'm going to give you reasons, though. Since December the 3rd, similar pitches have received refusals from planning committees. Rochford District Council application Grovewood Primary School for a mugger. It was refused on the use of rubber crumb and the effect of fencing and open space. Ossick College Wakefield refused on environmental loss of open space, noise, light pollution, plus potential antisocial behaviour. Impington Village College withdrew for lack of consultation. In 2016, an appeal dismissed a 3D pitch, and I can give you the details if you want it later, on the basis of the inspector found that the main issue is the effect of the development on the living conditions of the occupiers of neighbouring dwellings, in particular regard to noise, disturbance and artificial light. I ask you to refuse this application. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Now the other ward member, Councillor Richard Everett. Would you like to take a seat, Councillor Everett? And you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I thought I'd start with a recording of one of the over 160 bat contacts surveyed in the hedge, so you know that a bat detector has conclusively shown the presence of bats at this site. Unusually for me, I'm relieved that I'm not determining this application today. This is because your officers are putting you in a difficult position, having acted unprofessionally in a way that is highly likely to end up in judicial review should this application be approved. From the outset, as a member of this committee, I challenged officers on the fact that a bat species report has not been requested, even though Government and Natural England standing advice requires it. A preliminary ecological assessment, or PEA, is not sufficient. This is because broad-winged bats that are particularly susceptible to light have been surveyed to be present in the hedgerow bordering the 3G pitch. Increased light will result in their deaths by predation. Additionally, your officers have been alerted by me that the proper surveys for light where bats are present have not been undertaken. They have chosen not to require the proper surveys at less than 1 lux. Broad-winged bats are affected by light spill at under 1 lux. This light data needs to be present at ground level and at shoulder height because bat flight paths are higher than the ground level. Added to this, Essex County Council Ecology have also acted unprofessionally, saying that surveying sufficient to make a decision has been supplied, even though that is clearly not the case. The lack of a species survey and insufficient light survey data conspire together to ensure that the evidence is not present that would indicate the need to protect the bats. Their assertion that the bund protects the bats from light is not backed up by evidence because the necessary surveys have not been done to confirm the effects of light spill. A complaint to the CIEEM is being prepared on this. As I understand it, this is not the only survey not required by officers, as it should have been. An appraisal of the difference between the 2 acoustic consultant professional opinions is also required. Added to that, the spectator noise effects are not included. The independent 3 Spires acoustics report and the applicant's acoustic consultant limited report come to very different conclusions. This is not included in the officer report, although it was mentioned by the officer at the start. This begs the question, why do officers not want the correct data to be present for this committee? Is it because it's inconvenient to their argument? Let me be clear to officers and to the applicant. I have already approached the police, alerting them to the likelihood of a criminal act taking place if this application succeeds. They are ready to act when wildlife crime takes place, which the disturbance of these bats will be. Some individuals are also ready, should this application be approved, to take out a judicial review over the unprofessional and unlawful actions of this and Essex County Council in not requiring proper surveys. A final thought more to do with weightings and planning balance. I would suggest to you that the ecology concerns attract significant weight against this application. Equally, light pollution attracts significant weights against, as does noise. In short, it's argued that the following are significant reasons for refusal. Insufficient survey effort relating to bats, insufficient survey effort relating to noise, lack of appraisal of acoustic report differences, local residents and bats affected by light spill, local residents affected by noise, resulting in an overbearing impact on residential and ecological amenity. So in short, this application is not appropriate for its location and is therefore contrary to the NPPF's paragraphs 191, not 185 as the consultant report incorrectly states, A, B and C. Particularly, but not exclusively, para 191C. While it remains unclear as to whether you could individually be prosecuted because proper procedure has not been performed, the council will be. So please reject this application so that the council can retain its recently hard-won good planning reputation. Alternatively, at the very least, you could require a bat species survey and proper light surveys identifying light spill below 1 lux to make the determination legal. Thank you, and I wish you good luck in determining this application lawfully.
Thank you, Councillor Everett. Mr. Pingram, before we go to questions for the officer, is there anything that you would like to come back on, any points made by the speakers?
Thank you, Chairman. There was quite a lot of points covered, but I think I covered them in my report as well, so I think I'll wait for questioning, but I think Sue might want to provide a response.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The comments that Essex County Council Police Services have provided to the Planning Authority are based on planning policy, both national and local, and in addition, guidance issued by government relating to ecology. That clearly states, and I'm referring to circular, I think it's 06/2005, which states that it would be unreasonable to request additional information where species are likely to be present but not affected by mitigation that has been embedded in the application. If that information is secured by a condition or legal or planning obligation, it is not necessary or reasonable, which are planning tests. That's all I've got to say for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, in that case then now we will go to questions to the officer. Councillor Bray.
Thank you, Chairman. I may have a few questions, so perhaps I'll ask a few and then let somebody else have a go. It's quite a lot to deal with here. But I think the one I want to pick up on first is the issue regarding the bats and the necessity for a survey. I did do a little bit of digging around myself, and I found a document which comes from Natural England, which is the bats' advice for making planning decisions. That seems pretty relevant. So I went to that one. And one of the pieces in there says when to ask for a bat survey, and it is if a development is likely to negatively impact habitat or their foraging or commuting habitats. That seems extremely likely to me that given where we were today, if there are indeed bats there, and it would seem that there are, that therefore is telling us that we should be undertaking a bat survey. So the first question I've got is, other than the ecology assessment, which we know you've done, have any other surveys of any kind relating to ecology been done? Question one. Can I come back, Chair?
Yeah, I can provide a short response. No, just what you said. There's been no other further surveys.
Thank you. Given that I've just read out the recommendation from Natural England, which is come from a .gov site and is dated 14th of the 1st 22, which is substantially newer than the 2005 date I heard a moment ago, why would we not follow the advice of Natural England, since we normally strive to do so?
Right, so what you've got in front of you is actually also the government's advice on their own website in respect of the National Planning Policy Practice Guide. So I can read it in full if you like. It's right in front of me right now. It does say you should. It doesn't say you have to. It says you should ask for a survey if the development proposal is likely to negatively affect bats on their roost habitats, foraging habitats, or commuting habitats. It does go on to say a survey is needed if one or more of the following applies. Historical records, not the case here. The development site includes buildings or other built structures, underground structures or trees that provide roosting opportunities for bats. I'm not aware that is the case here, but I could be corrected by my colleagues. The proposal includes floodlighting of buildings. Now this is where there is a conflict here, because ultimately this is floodlighting isolated, but it's not the floodlighting of buildings or green spaces that the habitats tend to use. That's where judgment is involved, I would suggest, but it is again a judgment, not the one that we put forward to you at this current time. Close to water bodies, we haven't got any water bodies here. Natural cliff faces, we haven't got those. There's not a quarry, and it's not a wind farm proposal. So ultimately, the technical position is correct that we've put forward to you as officers, and I appreciate there may be some that disagree with that, but ultimately there is a judgment issue, and I will leave that to members' debate.
Thank you. Sorry, I hate to correct an officer, and I'm always loath to do it because I often fall foul. But actually, if you continue to read it, it says floodlit of buildings. It also says floodlighting of green spaces, does it not? That being the case, I think it's fair to say that this is a green space, so no judgment required, really.
Well, it actually says or green space close to habitats the bats tend to use. That's the entirety of it. Again, the judgment is how close. and that's where the judgment comes. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Okay for just 2 minutes, and then I'll let somebody else have a go. Thank you, Chair. Well, I'm a bit concerned because I think we all walk down there, and I think it's close. The second thing I was interested in is during the explanation from our officer, he mentioned an independent acoustic survey organised by the residents, I believe. Yet in no place in the report can I find that, which is a bit strange given that it did come up with different answers to the one we undertook ourselves. So that does concern me. And why have we not analysed one against the other, given that they are both fully independent? Yeah, I promise I'll finish. Fully independent surveys, and they both therefore should carry significant weight against each other. Why have we not analysed them against each other? Why have we assumed one is right and one is wrong?
Yeah, just to come back on that. So paragraph 8.32, I don't know if it's different in your agendas, but paragraph 8.32, I have mentioned this. So I said, following this, local residents have provided an independent review of the potential noise impacts. And then I sort of go into the summary of that. We reconsulted our environmental protection team following that, and they confirmed that, that they still retain their initial comments. So this has been addressed.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll let somebody else have a go. I'll come back later if I can. Thank you.
Yes, you may, Councillor Bray. Councillor Alexander next, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to put some substance around what we've heard from our speakers and from our officers. On the site visit this morning, the issue of a running track was mentioned. I looked. Could you please confirm the running track that is there? Is it a hard-based running track or is it grass?
There's this image here, which sort of shows you that it will be, I don't know the exact material of what it would be used, but it's clearly hard rather than on grass.
Chumps, I never caught that. So is it grass?
No, so if you see on the image just in front of you now, you can see it's a hard standing. I don't know the exact material, but it's not on grass.
I'm sorry, Chair. My colleague is trying to help me, and I can assure you of everything. I don't need any help. Okay, the second thing that was brought up was the spectator area. We were informed on the site visit that there was no provision made for spectators, but here tonight you mentioned spectators. Where would those spectators be in relationship to that plan, please?
Yeah, so with pictures like this, there is room to the sides that you can have spectator areas, but there's no seating proposed. It's not like a stadium, for example, something like that. It's more just a standing area where people can where they can stand. Through personal experience of playing on similar facilities in my younger years, I would say that it's not. You don't get too many people typically. Obviously, it's case by case. But that said, in terms of the impacts of what noise they might generate, that is factored into the transient noises that the noise impact assessment details, and that does fall within the guidelines of the World Health Organization.
Okay, so with the spectator area, which in effect doesn't exist, it's just the parameter of the plan before us. And am I right in that's what you're saying?
Yeah, so it's not, there's not a definitive answer to that. Technically, spectators can stand there and watch games, but it's not a seated area, for example, that's necessarily encouraging to spectators, but there is the potential to stand around the perimeter of the pitches and support, you know, members playing on the pitch. So it's not an official spectator area, I guess, would be the answer. But that said, I couldn't sit here and truthfully say to you there wouldn't be spectators to the side, because there could well be.
One more, please, Chair. Thank you. So I'm assuming then if there's no spectator area per se, then there will be no seating arrangement. I mean, this is only in my mind, because you'll be blocking the area that you want people to stand. Where would the changing rooms be?
That's a good question. So yeah, just to clarify, there's no seating areas. That's definitely not the case for the spectators. In terms of the changing facilities, that's not part of this proposal. It will. I don't know the answer definitively, but typically they'll probably be within the college grounds, I would imagine. In other facilities where I've played in similar things, that they don't ever include changing facilities outdoors. They're normally just within the main building, in this case, the actual college itself.
Okay. From where we were standing today and looking into the proposed application, there was a considerable distance through one gate right the way round to the front and into the school. I'm assuming there might be an entrance somewhere around the back that we were not privy to see. I believe that the changing rooms are important to this application, because you're going to get people coming from where we have no knowledge where they're coming from, in what state of dress, to play on the pitch. However, I have seen young lads on Sunday mornings all dressed up with their, I'm not a footballer, you must excuse me, our kit or whatever you call it, ready to go with the boots hanging over their shoulders. So is this some kind, this is what I'm looking at?
Yeah, without sort of repeating what I said before, I think the facilities for the changing room facilities would be within the school. It's certainly not part of this proposal. You're right in what you just suggested, that a lot of people will turn up in appropriate football kit already, I would imagine. Obviously, I can't say for sure, but that's normally how it works. But for those that do need changing facilities, I believe they'll just be within the main school grounds. They're not, certainly not part. There's no changing facilities proposed as part of this application.
Thank you, Chair. I do have other questions, but I'll let somebody else have a chance.
Thank you, Councillor Alexander. Are there any further questions? Councillor Wiggins and then Councillor Bray.
Thank you. I asked this morning about how high the floodlights were going to be compared with the trees. I wonder if you could tell me, please.
Thank you. Yeah, so what I prepared a drawing. My colleague did inform me. I can't answer in compared to trees, but what we have done is find, if I can find the right one. So this is the floodlighting on the left-hand side, and just to the right is the proposed fencing. And then we found old images of an extension to number 28 Heronsgate, the nearest property on Heronsgate. So that's 7.5 metres, and that's a rough indication of a typical two-storey dwelling. And then this one here is one of the bungalows along Walton Road, and that would be 4.5 metres. It just gives you a rough indication. Apologies, I can't say in comparison to the trees what it would be, but in terms of a typical dwelling, single-storey and two-storey nature, as well as the proposed fencing, hopefully this gives you a bit of an indication at kind of how high they would be. I've also, if I go back to the photos, so this one was 15 metres, so it's probably better if I show you the Harwich one. So this is the height. I appreciate it's not maybe the clearest, but hopefully you can see there's a floodlight there, one further in the distance there, one there, and then just one on the edge here. Hopefully that can give you a bit of an indication at kind of the height of what they would look like. Thank you.
So there would be the potential for them to shine into the back gardens of, say, the bungalows behind, especially.
So in terms of the light, the glare from the floodlights, I'll show you the lights. There's loads of figures on here. I'm sure you can't. I can't read them, so I'm sure that it's not possible. But essentially, the floodlights they face inwards, and it's probably better if I show you that image of the example elsewhere, where you can see that they point inwards, and you can see the surrounding area is a lot darker. So in our assessment, in terms of the glare from the floodlights, no, they will not go into the back gardens. But as I was saying before, sorry. So as I was saying before, there will be a light spillage, but the actual glare from the floodlights themselves is inward facing. So that's and that kind of goes back to what I was saying in my opening presentation, that there is a level of harm. What we identify a level of harm to that. But for the reasons of the amendments to the scheme and the fact that the actual glare itself will not be the issue, we've weighed that up against the public benefits and come to our recommendation.
Councillor Bray.
Thank you, Chair. I'll pick up on that because I wanted to move on to light anyway. Could you possibly pop back that photo that showed the the floodlight? Thank you. Sorry, the brain went dead there for a moment. It happens a lot. You showed us the floodlight as against the height of the houses, that one. That's the little fella. Is that to scale?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So what I'd really like to know, looking at that, is I appreciate the floodlights are pointing down, but what you are going to have is a big mass of light. That's unavoidable. Light travels, that's also unavoidable. The sun's been doing it forever. I would therefore suggest that, given certainly at the end, what we saw there today were bungalows, you're going to be able to see these lights from a very substantial distance away. Do we have any idea how far away?
Yes, I prepared ahead. So we've got 23 metres from this property here to the edge of the pitch, and approximately about 29 metres from the boundaries here. Hopefully you can see that on the image. Apologies if it's not that clear.
I can see what you're saying, but I don't buy it for a second, because I've seen these lights and you can see them from miles away if they're that high. So I'm really concerned about this, because we're talking about light spillage, etc. And I'll come on to the issue with the bats and the lights in just a second. But the lights and the people, I think that is pretty horrible. I can't imagine there's anybody in this room would actually want to live next to that. So when we say that they're LED lights, they point down, they point in, and there's no spillage, that's not really, is it, taking account of the fact that there is this big block of light that you will be able to see from a very long way away. Is that fair comment, or am I not commenting fairly?
Yeah, no, I think I agree with what you're saying. I say in terms of the sort of meeting the technical standards and the glare that comes from the floodlights, there's not going to be the issue in that respect. But I can't sit here and say to you there won't be a level of disturbance from the light, and that's what I've outlined in my report, and that's where the planning balance is really with this application. It is weighing up that harm versus the public benefits. You've seen where we've sort of fallen on that, but ultimately it is for members to decide if they agree with our position or have a different view.
You'll stop me when you're bored with me, won't you? Okay. Yeah, let's make it clear that I don't think anyone wants to stop sports facilities, but we do have a deal of responsibilities, and one of them is one I want to move on to now. We are not at liberty to do damage to protected species. It's something we should be avoiding doing. Now, Councillor Everett, I believe it was, mentioned the light situation and the light flow onto the potential bat areas there, and that some bats are affected by light less than 1 lux, and 1 lux seems to be the thing, but there are some bats that are affected by less than that, and actually this can result in their death. It concerns me greatly that we could leave ourselves in a position where we are causing harm to protected species. That is something that this committee and this council should never ever consider doing. Why have we not taken more trouble to ensure that we're not?
can answer that, Madam Chairman. The measures that are put in... Sorry, can you hear me better now? Apologies, everybody. The information provided in the application, which includes the Lux contour plans and the bund that will be put in place, will avoid any impacts on protected species from bats, and that it can be made acceptable by securing that information. As a professional ecologist and a full member and founder member of the Chartered Institute of Ecology and Environmental Management, I would never do anything like that. Thank you, Madam.
Amazingly pleased to hear it, but I am a little concerned because when I did my little bit of research, and I haven't done as much as you, I suspect you've got far more years of research than I have, but nonetheless I did discover that in order to do a survey it would need to be done both at ground height and at shoulder height, and I'm looking at a bund which is 1 metre. Now my shoulders will come a good deal higher than that. So that doesn't seem to be much protection then. And the idea of planting trees on the top of the bund, which is the next thing I want to come to, so probably Michael will pick this one up. If we're talking about a 1 metre bund, which is clearly not enough, but we're talking about planting on it to make it higher, what are we planting? And how long will it take before it has any effect whatsoever?
I'll answer first. I think Sue might come in after. Right, so yes, so the bund is just an additional sort of mitigation measure, I guess. And you're right, 1.1 metre, it's not particularly high. But there is proposed, and it was something we felt quite key to this application, because within the original submission there was no landscaping details, and I felt it was quite important that we had that information up front, so that we could really assess kind of how it could be mitigated. So there is a landscaping strategy provided. Our tree and landscape officer has looked at it and is content and happy with the proposals. To answer your question in terms of what landscaping there is, there's a native buffer mix, wildflower meadow, and then there's 13 trees that they measure between 3 metres and 5.5 metres at the time of planting. I clarified this afternoon with the tree and landscape officer, and that's at the time of planting. So obviously they'll potentially grow further than that. So while the 1 metre bunding, I wouldn't say it's insufficient, but it helps with the overall landscaping proposal. That on top of the proposed trees hopefully will provide a nice degree of screening.
Last little bit, Chairman, and I promise I'll be quiet for a while. Okay, that's fine. I think whilst I'm pleased to hear that, we know that trees are not walls, and their effect is not the same as the effect of a wall, so there will be gaps, and that's a concern. The other thing that concerned me when we were there today was looking at where the bund was going. Basically, and I think Sports England even suggested it could be used as a viewing point for spectators, could also be used as a viewing point to look into quite a number of people's bungalow living room windows. Are we not concerned about overlooking?
That's a fair point, and one we did raise as officers early on. I believe that it is gated. I'm trying to remember now. I'll come back to you on that if that's okay, but it was something that we initially raised some months ago.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Chair. I've been listening intently to this, Chair, and there are issues here which keep on repeating in my mind. You could say I've been cogitating over this. The bund. There was no condition in place within our conditions to say that the bund is out of bounds for anyone to stand upon, shout, scream, and look over into other people's garden. Am I correct?
Sorry, just to clarify, did you say is that a condition to stop people spectating? I've missed that bit.
I said that there isn't any conditions. No.
No, there's no condition.
Maybe that's something we could consider. The other thing is, without going over myself time and time again, I'm going to go back to the running track. Could you tell me what the actual running track is? It's not grass. What is it actually made from? What's the substance that it's made from?
Are you talking about this one on the plan here, the one that's proposed, yeah? I don't have the material for it, but it's some form of hard-standing rubber type material, but I don't know the exact details, sorry.
In the report, which was an excellent report, I thoroughly enjoyed it, but the report was that there was a running track, and this would complement that running track in its location. And I asked, is the running track made from a hard base substance or is it grass? And you said, no, it's not grass. So it must be made from something else. And may I ask, do you know? I mean, you can't know possibly everything, but would you know what that substance is that this is made from?
I'm sorry, I don't know. It's not grass, it's a hard-standing rubber type base, but I don't know the exact details, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I'll wait till we go into debate.
Thank you, Councillor Alexander. Okay, I know we've got one more question from Councillor Bray before we go into debate. There is something that it's not a question. Well, I suppose it is a question. I read through quite a number of the representations from local residents that you had submitted online and had a look at what you had to say, what your objections were, or what your support was for this application. And something that I spotted in one of them was a link to a report on a BBC website, 3G pitches allegedly causing cancer. And I couldn't really find out much more. Mr. Pateman G.
Well, maybe I should have waited for the question. I do apologise. Ultimately, I appreciate that report, but that is not before us in respect of this application, and it's not currently not a planning issue that I can put forward for discussion on that basis in terms of material weight. So I appreciate the consideration there, but I don't really think we would be able to supply you with any information beyond what you've read.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bray.
Just very quickly, that was quite a concerning answer, if I'm honest. If there's a suggestion that something is bad for people's health, I'm not sure we should be ignoring it. And actually, it was part of my question, which was the rubber crumb, which we were talking about. Are we still comfortable with using that? A similar question to yours, actually, Chair, given that the European Union are on the brink of outlawing it because it's dangerous to health. Why are we still comfortable with that?
Right. Well, unfortunately for us, we deal with planning legislation, and also we have to deal with the UK planning position, and ultimately, if it's not a banned substance for any other reason, that are controlled by other powers, we shouldn't be duplicating those powers in respect of planning legislation. I appreciate another authority might have refused that basis. I don't know what policy framework they have on that basis. You do not have that policy basis that I could specifically point to at this time. I really can't think of any way you could consider the policies that we've got available to us to direct us to seek an alternative material when it is not a banned material for other reasons. So I would caution against going down that road in planning terms for this specific council.
Chair. Yeah, I fully take on board what you said, and I understand all of that. I would caveat it with saying that it will be a brave planning inspector who turned it over with that kind of controversial issue, but I'll leave that there. The very last point, if I can I confirm that the officer during his presentation described his decision to recommend approval here as finely balanced? I believe those are the words you used. Is that correct? And by finely balanced, do you mean that you could have reached the opposite decision without too much difference? Fair comment?
Interesting question. Yeah, right. Yeah, to answer that last question, yes, definitely on balance. Very, very finely on balance application. There are benefits, in my opinion, and there are drawbacks, in my opinion. I've had to weigh them up. It's a close call. There are harms. I'm not getting away from that, but there are public benefits which I think just outweigh it. That's my professional opinion, but it is on balance. And just to go back on your other point about the potential for overlooking from the bund, I just wanted to clarify. So actually on this plan, it's right in front of me the whole time, but if I don't know if it's that clear of the wording on here, but so this arrow here is pointing to a maintenance and emergency access gate and pathway, and then here it says 4.5 metre high fencing between the playing field and the bund to prevent student/user access to bund. This box down here says the exact same thing. So it is there's fencing there to avoid
There'll be
that
a fence
potential
between the bund and the
to avoid
properties.
to avoid the overlooking, and also actually with the proposed landscaping, that would also, in the event that there was anybody stood up there, then that would reduce some of the harm in any case. But it is my understanding is it would only be available for use as and when they were like maintenance or for the running track.
Thank you. I would just say to that it makes the case very strongly for the occasions which I've argued forever exist, where officers should be forced to make a recommendation one way or the other, where it's so finely balanced. I'll leave that there. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Mr. Pateman-G.
Just two quick things. Firstly, just going back to the fencing that's restricting the access. Now, this is where I'm not going to go through all the conditions that are in your papers, but just to clarify with my officer, have we conditioned that fencing to ensure it goes ahead? If the answer is no, and maybe you'll look that up for me, I would perhaps suggest that members may wish to add that to the recommendation to ensure that that fencing does take place. The second point is I would respectfully, Chair, ask for a brief pause in proceedings. If I may, I would like to obtain some legal advice from the solicitor before going further on this matter, if you would allow me that moment.
Would that be a brief pause for about a minute or longer? Well, we can suspend the meeting for 5 minutes. Yes, okay. Right, we'll now suspend the meeting for 5 minutes. Bethany, if you could stop the live stream. Thank you. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Welcome back, everybody. So we will now go to Mr. Pateman G.
Right, where to begin? I appreciate that, and I don't normally do this in quite a blunt way, so do forgive me for this, but I appreciate that the debate that is about to go ahead is likely to be discussing bats quite considerably. We obviously have taken time out to consider all comments and views raised on this particular issue, and ultimately, while there's questions about the legality of any decision making, which we are very comfortable with, there is a judgment in respect of the one available. That judgment is a judgment, and that judgment is a judgment that you as the decision maker can make. So therefore, you would perhaps be minded to consider, if you were minded to approve the application, that a deferment in respect of seeking that BAT survey, and then for ultimately the application coming back with those results, would be a cautious approach that would be recommended. I would add, just in addition to that, consideration of page 56 and condition number 16 that does reflect, in direct reflection of that position, the need for the floodlighting to be designed for biodiversity in accordance with the circular, which includes bats and artificial external lighting. And ultimately, that condition would not be discharged without it being clearly demonstrated that bats would not be harmed as a consequence of that lighting scheme. However, that is not, setting that condition aside, ultimately it is a precautious approach that you may wish to consider appropriately if you were to look at approval as recommended to seek a survey of bats in the line of this, and ultimately would come back to committee on that basis. Okay, so we've debated this, and that's a position we are comfortable with and seek to recommend to you for your debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pateman G. Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Mine was minor, really, but if we are minded to do this, I was going to recommend that we deferred this for that very reason, so I would be very pleased to propose that later on. But the question, on page 34, it's the Sport England which says, Sport England raises no objection to this application because it fits exception 5. Now, if we go on page 35, the third paragraph down, Sport England will oppose the granting of planning permission for any development which would lead to the loss of or prejudice the use of all or any part of a playing field. That seems completely contrary to me. Either they are going to support it or they would oppose it. And I think that's something that perhaps the officers might comment on, but I saw there was a caveat, the 5 specific exceptions, but I didn't know which the 5 specific exceptions were. On the face of it, it looked to me as if it was a contradiction in terms. I don't know whether the officer wants to add anything, but I just add a footnote that I very much like the proposal of the planning manager and would be very keen to do it when you want a recommendation.
Mr. Pingram.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I think it's been you've kind of been answered already, but yeah, so Sport England would be concerned with the loss or part loss of a playing field, but on this occasion, the proposal is for an outdoor sport facility, so they've weighed that up, and that's one of the exceptions, essentially.
Thank you, Mr. Pingram. Councillor Bray, and we are now in debate, and then after Councillor Bray, we'll go to Councillor Everett. Sorry, Councillor Alexander.
He looked hopeful there. Okay. I just want to clarify, first of all, I appreciate what the head of planning has come forward with. I think it works, but he did say if we're minded to approve, we could defer. I'm minded to defer. We'll decide whether to approve when the time comes. So I think deferral seems like the logical thing to do to me. Clearly, there's a lot of questions, particularly over light spillage, bats, etc., that I think probably more than one of us over here isn't particularly comfortable with. So therefore, if it's not already proposed, I'll propose it. If it's not, I'll second it. So I'll second for deferral.
Councillor White has indicated he will propose. So
excellent. I'll second then, Chair.
Second for deferral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Second for deferral to allow time for the surveys that need to be done. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Chair. I entirely agree with my colleagues that there are still so many questions. Sometimes we sit here and we debate these enormous applications before us, and they flow, and we get to the end of it and everything is solved. Here, there's still questions to be answered, and we need to do that. And one of them, having determined that there is somewhere an independent ecology survey, I believe it would be beneficial for us to see what that independent survey says, Chair, because it is pertinent to us, because it's coming from a professional hip. The second part of this is that here is a unique opportunity to produce this on behalf of the people in that area. And in fact, I'm very much in favour of the whole project. I think the project itself is good, but where it is situated, I'm not 100% sure it falls in line with what the surrounding area requires. We were talking today of why it was placed here, not turned against the side of the building. I mentioned, for example, changing rooms. It's a long way away from where the main building is, and we've had no discussion on that, and I think that needs to be brought up as well, to what's going to happen. Where are people going to this road? So, yes, I'm all in favour of it, and I should be voting solidly for deferral. And if I may, I shall forward questions which I would like to have answered in the near future.
Thank you, Councillor Alexander. Are there any other comments from the committee? We do have a proposer and a seconder to defer this application for the relevant surveys to take place. Mr. Guyver.
Thank you. I think we could perhaps welcome just a bit of clarity around specifically the topic areas where further information is requested. Now, clearly, bat survey is the one that's been discussed, but before the decision goes through and we're left with a bit of ambiguity about what's required, I would request members' advice as to what specific information they would like to see as a result of the deferral.
Councillor Bray.
Thank you, Chair. I will endeavour to try. I think quite clearly we're looking for a bat survey here. We need to understand bats and the issues around those, including a light survey for under 1 lux, which I think is also there. When we look at the Natural England documentation, that does suggest that that's a good thing to do. And I appreciate it was said earlier, we should do it, but we don't have to. Well, I quite like should as being a have to be honest. So that's the first thing. I think some further exploration as to the orientation of the pitch might be worth looking at too, to see. I believe it's been looked at in the past, but there's nothing to be lost by looking again. So I think that's something else we should be looking at. And also I'd like some analysis done on the other noise survey. There was another independent noise survey. I'd like them compared And I'd like to understand why we selected the one that suited us best rather than the other one, or why we didn't at least compare one against the other and go for a middle ground, which I think we should have done. I think that's all I'd be looking for, unless anybody else has anything else. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Bray, as you were the seconder, I now need to go to the proposer. Are you in agreement with your seconder? Sorry, Mr. Pingram.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I just wanted to jump in on one of those points in particular, the orientation of the pitch. That's not something that's been brought up in discussion so far, so I just wanted to provide a bit of clarity on that, and you can make your mind up from there. It is something that was discussed, so when officers had concerns with the original impact to neighbours and looked at ways around it, we did, that was one of the questions, what can you do? If I go to the, where is it? Yeah, this pitch here. So this shows the existing running track and other pitches that would need to also be facilitated. So to meet Sport England requirements, i.e. not get an objection from Sport England, it's not just having this one AGP pitch. There's also needs to be other playing pitches and running track facilities. I don't think it's possible to navigate this in any other way, to fit everything on. It might be possible to have this pitch potentially up here, for example. I hope you can see where I'm hovering. But actually, that would probably impact a greater number of residents, and I'm not sure it would improve the position. So I just wanted to make that point clear. And then also just to come back on the noise survey. So the noise impact assessment was provided, environmental protection commented on that. Local residents provided an independent review. That was also reviewed by our environmental protection team, but they confirmed that their position remained as per their initial comments. I just want to make that clear before the debate goes any further. Thanks.
Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Chair. I won't delay this any more than I need to. I agree with my colleague, Councillor Bray. I think that we need to see all the surveys and try to understand them fully. We haven't even touched on the construction management and how that's going to work, as the work will be carried out while the children will be inside of the school. This is what we were informed this morning, so I'm taking it as that. If there is that document, I think it would be nice to have that as well, so we can see what's going on, and I think that would give us a much clearer picture for the future.
Councillor Bray, did you indicate?
No, but I'll agree with everything that Councillor Alexander said there. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Are there any further comments? Mr. Pingram.
Sorry, me again. Just on the construction method statement that was just mentioned, again for full clarity, Essex Highways have requested the full details to be submitted as part of a condition. That is actually condition 8 in the recommendation. So again, just so you're fully up to speed.
No further comments from members? Okay, we have the proposal from Councillor White and also seconded by, actually provided the wording from Councillor Bray. So we'll go to the vote for deferral. So can I have a show of hands for deferral, please? This application is deferred. Bethany, could you stop the live stream for 5 minutes? Thank you. Welcome back, part 3.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. Right, this one is different to the previous one. I'll be reasonably targeted in my presentation. So the proposal is for temporary use of the Bathside Bay container terminal permitted under planning permission, those reference numbers. From here on referred to as the Bathside Bay Container Terminal Permission, or BBCT permission. So the proposal is for temporary use of that Bathside Bay permission for wind turbine storage, staging, marshalling and assembling, including the import and export, handling and deployment of concrete substructures, moorings, anchors, and array cables, and other related offshore green energy paraphernalia, followed by the decommissioning to enable the continuation of the container terminal use under the BBCT permission. So the site, you know the site well, I've been there today. Just change my pointer. Right. Yeah. So this is the site plan. The vast majority of the site is literally the water of Bathside Bay, and in this part of this Tower estuary. There are some areas of land included in the site plan, as well as some existing infrastructure. So the next slide is an aerial. The site is strategically very well placed between the international ferry terminal to the west and the historic town of Harwich. The site forms part of the Stour and Orwell estuaries special protection areas and the Stour and Orwell estuaries Ramsar site. So in terms of the wider context, directly adjacent to the site indicated in red there again are a collection of allocated employment sites, a priority area for regeneration, and the site is generally in a very, very sustainable location, not only for a container terminal, but also for the proposed temporary use, for the reasons set out in the report. On the northern side of the estuary, you can see the Port of Felixstowe, as well as some parts of the town of Felixstowe. Right. So this slide shows the extent of the approved BBCT permission. So it's the approved Bathside Bay Container Terminal platform. The slide is basically to show you the full extent of that permission. And one of the repeat themes in the report is the fact that works have commenced on the BBCT permission. Therefore, that permission is a material consideration of very significant weight, and I'll return to that concept in a minute. So purely from a planning perspective, I've just switched over to the proposed site layout plan for the temporary green energy hub use. And in the next 3 or 4 minutes, I will sort of just jump between the two, just to really show you how close and how similar the actual extent of the ultimate works are. So purely from a planning perspective, and relevant material planning considerations that you can take into account, this is actually a rather straightforward planning application for you to consider tonight. So it essentially boils down to 3 things. So as mentioned earlier in the presentation, the BBCT permission has been implemented. The LPA agrees that development works for that relating to the BBCT permission have lawfully commenced, And the reasons for that is set out in paragraph 6.22 and 6.23, as well as 6.3 of the committee report. Those are key paragraphs. And like I've said earlier, we afford very significant weight to this BBCT permission. Secondly, the proposal is for a temporary period of up to 15 years only. So the applicant wants to use areas of already approved infrastructure that they are building for the BBCT development, and mainly the northern platform in this area here, but also other areas for storage, staging, marshalling, and assembling of wind turbines. So broadly, it's referred to as a green energy hub use, GEH. So the GEH use can take place on this BBTC platform with only limited additional requirements. And these requirements can be summarized as the creation of a slightly different berthing area in this location here, slightly different compared to the BBCT permission. So this is to allow a heavy load out quay, and the construction will also, the construction in this area that will last for a temporary period of 15 years only, will allow for jack-up vessels to dock at the new quay wall here. Secondly, a temporary platform supported by piles is being installed next to this quay, next to the berthing area here, along with mooring dolphins. So mooring dolphins are structures used to secure vessels associated with the GEH use. And then the last reason why there's actually limited things for you to take into account from a planning point of view is because the works to facilitate the temporary green energy hub use will exclusively take place offshore and not on land. So planning permission is actually not required for the works, but planning permission is required for the temporary change of use, if that makes sense. So lastly, this slide, I think, perhaps is a better illustration of the different zones on the approved platform and how these will operate as part of the temporary green energy hub use. So in the orange/red color, the primary activities that will take place here will be around dedicated import and export shipping operation zones tailored for the multi-user heavy-duty marshalling and storage of these wind turbine equipment. There. In yellow, this is a designated zone for the marshalling and storage of wind turbine blades and all those associated components, including concrete substructures, moorings, anchors, and array cables. And the area in sort of a blue purpley color will be allocated for offshore wind operations and maintenance purposes. So in summary, the committee report sets out all the key and most important material planning considerations, including consideration of the submitted environmental statement. The Habitats Regulation Assessment confirms that the Green Energy Hub proposal will not result in significant adverse effects on the Stour and Orwell Estuaries SPA and the Ramsar site. It is not considered likely that there will be harmful elements to this temporary use over and above the BBCT permission. That's a really important thing, I think, to take into consideration. The Green Energy Hub operations are fully reversible. It's been designed as such. The removal of all the equipment at the end of the temporary period is entirely possible and fully designed into the construction elements of those infrastructure. A condition is recommended to ensure that it's temporary in nature only, and will require the removal of all the equipment and paraphernalia associated with the green energy hub use, and the full site reinstatement, guided by an approved decommissioning strategy overseen by the local planning authority. So the BBCT permission and the works, the BBCT permission is absolutely on its way, and this proposal is just a temporary 15-year period to enable the the use as described. Ultimately, officers consider that this temporary use will bring about very, very significant economic benefits, including considerable job opportunities and new jobs, and very significant weight is attributed to those elements. All other elements can either be secured by condition or are fully policy compliant, and members are requested to consider officers' recommendation. Thank you. There's no updates, but yeah, just for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Yasma. We have two speakers for this application. The first one is the applicant or agent, but in this case it's the agent, Mr. John Bowles. If you'd like to take a seat, push the button in the middle, and you have 3 minutes, Mr. Bowles.
Good evening. I'm John Bowles, a director of Savills and the planning agent for the applicant. This application seeks planning permission for the use of the land platform being created by the reclamation of Bathside Bay as a green energy hub. This use will be a temporary period of 15 years, whilst other construction elements of the container terminal are delivered and ahead of the full operation of the new container port. Importantly, this interim or meanwhile use would take place at the same time as the container terminal business builds up without delaying or impacting it. This permission is needed because the BBCT permission presently only allows container terminal use and does not cater for additional need. It will build on previous offshore wind activity at Harwich International Port, providing additional port capacity and wind turbine storage, assembly and servicing. It will support the offshore energy sector and the delivery of the big new arrays of wind farms planned in the seas off Norfolk and Suffolk as part of the government's ambitious plans to make the UK a world leader in clean wind energy. It's consistent with the government's Powering Up Britain plan as one of the first steps of the UK's path to net zero. As well as supporting the achievement of national policy ambitions and underpinning the success of Freeport East, this interim use will directly generate approximately 150 additional direct jobs, £11.8 million gross value added per year to the local economy, and additional retained business rates revenue, all in addition to and before the full benefits of the Bathside Bay container terminal are realised. The existing BBCT permission includes a mechanism through the Section 106 agreement to address skills shortages within the sector and to secure a training scheme for local people. The applicant already engages in skills and training programs to meet its anticipated needs for workers and will work with Freeport East and the other partners to maximise local employment opportunities and to allow for apprentices to move into roles connected with the Green Energy Hub as part of Freeport East. For these reasons, and subject to the recommended planning conditions, which, amongst other matters, will ensure that this interim use and any paraphernalia associated with it is removed within the permitted period, I respectfully ask members of this committee to accept the recommendation to grant planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowles. And the next speaker is a member of the public speaking in favour of the application, Mr. Steve Beale. If you'd like to take a seat, Mr. Beale, and it's the button in the middle. When the red light comes on, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, thank you. Steve Beale, Chief Executive of Freeport East. Freeport East is a public-private partnership and not-for-profit organisation that doesn't own land or assets, but we do administer funds on behalf of government to support the local area. The main purpose of Freeport East is to build a stronger local economy and ensure that the activities we see in the maritime and port sector translate into wider economic growth for local areas. Economic regeneration in Tendring is a core objective. More jobs, higher incomes, better support for individuals to get the skills they need. We want local businesses to be more successful, better infrastructure and transport services, and make Harwich and Tendring places that people and businesses want to come to. Helping Harwich and Tendring act as a centre for green industries and an example of what sustainable development looks like is also part of our ambition. This includes working with existing local organisations operating in the clean energy space, such as RWE, Holterman Carless and the University of Essex, but it's also about positioning Harwich to gain from the undoubted growth in green industries that we will see in the coming years. The interim use of Bathside Bay as a green energy hub to support the offshore wind and wider clean energy sectors is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to kickstart the revitalisation of Harwich and the surrounding area. Bathside Bay is the single biggest development opportunity across all of Tendring and North Essex in the coming years. It will facilitate a range of high-value green jobs and attract new businesses, as well as bring in significant new funding that will be reinvested into the local economy. It also positions Harwich to play a central role in helping deliver the UK's ambitions for offshore wind. Given that the UK is already a world leader in this sector, with the largest offshore wind farms anywhere in the world, it also means the opportunity to be part of a globally leading industry that creates further benefits for the local area and allows us to demand more investment from our own government. Through utilising the pre-existing planning consent for the Bathside Bay container terminal, it also provides a pathway to the longer-term productive use of the new site, securing jobs and skills opportunities for the long term. We strongly supported the Little Oakley project for the benefit it would provide as an exemplar of sustainable development. We support Bathside Bay because of the benefits it will bring to this local area, as well as the role it will play in helping the UK to continue to be a world leader in important industries of the future. The benefits to Harwich and the surrounding area are therefore unique, and we hope the committee are able to provide their support for the application this evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Beale. Mr. Yosma, is there anything within the speakers that you'd like to come back on? No? No? Okay. So now we will go to members for questions to the officer. Councillor Bray.
It's always me. Just a very quick one. I think I know the answer, but is it correct in saying that at the end of the 15-year temporary period, it will revert back to its original planning application situation? Is that correct?
That's correct. It will revert back to the BBCT permission.
Right. In that case, Chairman, I mean, 150 jobs, massive boost to the economy, ecology business. There's no light, there's no sound, and there's no bat issues either. There's nothing not to like here, is there? So when the time comes, I'll be happy to propose this. And I would also like to just comment and say that the report put forward by the officer, I find fine-tooth-combed it. I can't find anything wrong with it, which is a bit disappointing. It's a brilliant report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Councillor White.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I also am a great believer in this development. So, but my question is, having seen a very similar application in North France about 3 weeks ago at Le Havre, where 2/3 of the dock area is taken up with bits of wind generators. How are we, and we've just been told that there won't be actually construction here, but how are the bits, the propellers, the generators, how are they going to come on to this piece of land that we're proposing? Presumably they'll come in by sea from somewhere, and then they'll go out in smaller vessels for the construction. But how do they originally get there?
Yeah, so my understanding is that, you know, the vast majority of these components are these are big infrastructure pieces of equipment. So I think the vast majority of them will come by sea on vessels, but there's also percentage, precisely how many, I don't know, but there will be a percentage of components coming via the road network, the smaller stuff.
Thank you. We were told this morning in answer to my question that there is a separate application which will go to the MMO on the depth of channel, and I was just wondering how big the boats will be able to bring in these propellers, but that I understand from the answers this morning is a subject to a different planning application.
I mean, there's a whole plethora of issues that cannot be considered as part of the planning application. Instead, it falls under the marine management licensing regime, and there's an MMO application, I think, already being submitted to the MMO.
Further questions for the officer? We have a proposal already from Councillor Bray. Councillor Alexander, as per the conditions, the recommendations in the report. It's been a long day.
Can I talk on that, Chair?
Yes, of course you can, Councillor Alexander. Go ahead.
May I ask, are we going into debate?
We are in debate now.
Good, that's fine. Many moons ago, when this first came out before us, Chair, I was taken back by the magnitude, the size of this and what it was going to do, and having such a close family history with the area and my ancestry moving from Harwich over to Felixstowe, and watching how that has gone from those late Victorian, early Edwardian times to where we are now. It is our turn now, here in Tendring, to develop. And we, as an honourable band of councillors, no matter how small our cog is, we are playing a minute part in making this work. A part of history that will alter the way that Tendring, Harwich, Parkston Quay, Ray Island, that belonged to my family, as you know. So the whole thing is just, in my mind, an amazing thing. I'm so pleased to see this, 150 jobs, more to come. To me, this is a gift, Chair, that just keeps on giving. And this is just what we need to boost our area. And congratulations to the officers and to the company. And I wish them all the luck.
Thank you, Councillor Alexander. I know I won't outdo you on your connections with Harwich, but I've lived in the Harwich area for over 50 years now, but I still haven't got my gold badge. Well, actually, I suppose I have had a gold badge hanging around my neck for the last year, the mayoral chain. But I can remember my father talking about the Bathside Bay development when I was about 12. So it's good to see now how, as Councillor Alexander said, how things have come along and history in the making. So I will certainly be supporting this application. So as we have the proposal from Councillor Bray and seconded by Councillor Alexander, may I have a show of hands for approval, please? That is unanimous. This application is approved. Thank you, members. Just two more items to go on the agenda for noting. Item 7, the report of the Director of Planning, A3, Planning Enforcement Update. Noted. And item 8, report of the Director of Planning, A4, Planning Appeal, Annual Update. Noted. So that just leaves me to give you the date of the next meeting, which will be on Tuesday, the 11th of June 2024. And thank you everybody out there in YouTube land for tuning in. You can now close down the live stream, Bethany. Thank you.